Canon 31, the Book of Enoch Henok, the Book of Remembrance verses 992 to 1400. Further visions of Enoch, the wise one with the head of days and the guilty ones.
This video features a translated version of the original text. Please be aware that the translation may contain inaccuracies, as it is one of the earlier versions of the Omphalon Narodo. A more updated version includes additional context and clarification for many of the words used. For a deeper understanding of the content, it's strongly recommended to refer to the original German text and review each term individually. This will help ensure a clearer grasp of what is being conveyed.
And this is now the second picture speech which was given to me, and which depicteth about those who deny the name of the dwelling place of the flaming watchers and the highest wise ones and the glory of creation. Verily, the unrighteous and deniers and slanderers of truth will not rise up into the heavens, and they will not be able to live in peace and love and well-being on earth. This is the lot of the unrighteous, who slander and deny the name of the glory of creation, wherefore they keep themselves, so that their days of existence are filled with evil suffering and with misery and distress. But the day will come, when the unrighteous will stand before the throne of justice, where a sorting will be held among mankind, depending upon actions and places and numbers. But this will be the time during which the spirit of the righteous will be strong within them. When they experience true justice, all those who have kept the name of the glory of creation in purity and reverence. And in those days, through the counsel of all flaming watchers, and according to the will of creation, the chosen one of all the chosen, and the wisest one of all the wise will come among mankind and dwell among them. Then, however, the heavens will be transformed, and everything will be made to eternal blessing and to light. And the highest one of all the highest will change the earth and will make it a blessing, and also let all chosen ones live on it. But the unrighteous, who have committed crimes and have not changed, they will never again step on the earth, for only those will live, who are saturated with peace, and are just, while all unrighteous ones will be consumed from the surface of the earth, like annoying noxious insects which annihilate themselves in reciprocity. But in my vision I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was also as white as wool. But with him was another, whose countenance was like the appearance of a human being, yet his face radiated in grace like a holy watcher of the Pa-Ta Li. Therefore I asked the watcher who went with me and who showed me all hidden things, who he is, and where from this Son of Man is, and why he walketh about with the Ancient of Days, I asked the watcher. But he answered and spoke to me.
Henok, why do you ask me, for you know quite well who this questioned Son of Man is, yet who is not a son of man of earth? You know that he walketh with the Ancient of Days, because he is the wisest of all wise ones, and, therefore, older than the oldest ones. You know very well, this is the Son of Man, who is not a son of man of earth, for he is son of man of another world, and only inhabits a mortal body of this earth world. You also know this is the Son of Man, who liveth as a stranger among mankind, and who hath righteousness. And you also know this is the Son of Man, in whom justice resideth, and who revealeth all treasures of the hidden, because it is so determined by the counsel of the wise holy watchers. And you also know, because his lot hath exceeded everything in righteousness before the holy counsel of all wise watchers of the highest in eternity. And this Son of Man, who you have seen and whom you know very well in yourself, will stir up the kings and mighty and the tyrants from their couches and thrones, as also the sectarians and idolaters and God-servants and all unrighteous ones of other types. He will loose the bridles of the tyrants, and will grind the teeth of the unrighteous. He will cast down the kings from their thrones and expel them from their illegal nations, because they live not according to the laws and commandments of creation and do not exalt and praise creation, neither gratefully acknowledge, so that they cannot conduct their justly or unjustly imparted or stolen office. And the Son of Man with the Ancient of Days will equally expel the countenance of the tyrants and the unrighteous from his face, if they do not listen to his words of truth and the teaching of truth, and change to righteousness. And blushing shame will fill the tyrants, as also all the unrighteous among mankind of earth, for his teaching of truth will be powerful, so that because of it they will be expelled. Darkness will become their dwelling place and worms their couches, and they will also have no hope any more to ever rise up from their couches, because they do not exalt and esteem the name of creation. But among these unrighteous and losers will also be those losers who are scholars, who master the stars and yet raise their hands against creation, and trample down the earth on which they yet live. Verily, all their actions are unrighteousness and reveal unrighteousness. And their power resteth on their wealth, and their belief is belief and concerneth gods and idols which they worship in dishonesty, and which they have elected or made with their hands, while they deny the name of creation. But verily, they will be driven from their homes, and from the places of righteousness of the knowledgeable ones of creation truth, who are weighed in the name of creation and its glory. And in those days, the truthful prayer of the righteous and knowing will rise up to creation and penetrateth it, and will be heard, while the blabber begging of the believers of all sects and religions and unrighteous faddeth away unheard in senseless efforts. In those days, the holy watchers of the invisible heavens will be united in one voice and pray and praise and honor, and thank the name of creation, that the praying of the righteous shall not be in vain, and that justice shall be bestowed upon them.
And in those days I saw that the Son of Man with the Ancient of Days sat down at the feet of creation and watched how creation spread its entire glory. And I saw how the wise of all wise ones with the Ancient of Days had opened the book of life before him, and how an entire army of all wise ones and holy watchers read in the book of the living. And I saw, and the hearts of the wise ones filled with joy, when they saw that the number of righteous ones was of a great number. And in the vision I saw at a place a fountain of justice which was inexhaustible. It was surrounded by many fountains of wisdom, and all thirsty ones drank from the fountain and became full of wisdom. And the thirsty ones had their dwelling places with the righteous and wise ones, and with the holy and chosen ones. And at every hour was mentioned that Son of Man with the Ancient of Days, that he had brought the teaching of truth, and through it the glories of creation, and that, therefore, creation shall be praised all days unto eternity, and the Son of Man with the Ancient of Days shall be honored in respect and reverence. And before the sun of earth and all signs of the planets of this sun were created and made, the name of the Son of Man with the Ancient of Days was named on the world of Lasan, and among the radiant ones of Ptah-li, and the flaming watchers of the Arahat Athersata. But that Son of Man will be staff unto the righteous and wise and holy ones, and the flaming watchers of the invisible heavens. And they all will lean upon it and not fall. And he will be the light of the nations, and the hope of those who are grieved in their thinking. And all righteous and wise and holy ones, who live on earth and in the invisible heavens, will esteem and honor and respect him, and they will also extol and praise the name and the glory of creation in great measure. And the Son of Man with the head of days was selected as wise of all wise ones, but he was also hidden in an invisible heaven before the earth was created. But into the invisible heaven he will return unto eternity, if he no longer walketh as Son of Man, and his spirit form again. And the wisdom of creation has revealed him through the decree of the holy ones, so that he guards the lot of the righteous, because they disdain the world of injustice and all the evil ways and works. In the name of creation they will be saved, and the wise one, the Son of Man with the head of days, will be the avenger against injustice and wrong living. And in those days the gazes of the kings of earth are often cast down, and also all the tyrants and all other unrighteous ones, who own the planet and wealth for the sake of their hands and power. But on the day of their anxiety and misery they will find no comfort and no deliverance. They will fall into the hands of their own anxiety and fear, and also will be handed over to their own helplessness and the impossibility of a way out. And therefore they will burn like straw in the fire, and they will sink into the abyss of darkness like lead in dark water. And they will sink before the face of the righteous, and before the face of the holy and wise ones, and no trace of them will be found. And after the day of their misery, peace and love and truth and wisdom will be on earth. And the unrighteous will fall into the infinity of nothingness before the glory of creation. Without return, therefore, they will not rise again and not be born again. And there will be nobody who would take them into his hands and pick them up, for they have denied the glory and creation, and also the wise of all wise ones, the Son of Man with the white head of days. Praise be unto creation, and praised be its name. Praise be unto the glory of creation. Praise be unto the love of creation. And praise be unto the wisdom and justice of creation, which shall be honored and revered and celebrated in song. And the Son of Man with the head of days will himself not topple the mighty ones and kings and tyrants and the unrighteous of the earth. For they will all be toppled by the power of his words of truth, which are the teaching of truth and the laws and commandments of creation. Therefore it is said that he will topple the mighty ones and kings and tyrants and unrighteous. I asked the flaming watcher who went with me, who the other one is, the one with the countenance full of grace, and like one of the radiating watchers of the Pa-ta Li, who went about in harmony with the one who had the head of days. And therefore he answered me and spoke,
Why do you ask me, Henok, about the wise of all wise ones? You know very well that the gracious and flaming one is the same, as the one with the head of days, before he changed back into human form, so that he may live as wise of all wise ones among man, and instruct them in the truth. Verily, however, the gracious, the highest of all highest ones in the WE of the Arahat Athasata, is, therefore, mediator between the world of Arahat Athasata and Patahli. But he changed himself back to the form of the Son of Man with the head of days, to enter upon the world, Lasan, among human beings, to go out from there as highest of all highest instructors of wisdom and of the laws and commandments of creation. Truly, torment is the long way of his, and also misery and suffering in the human body, which is being harmed, and which lieth far below his spirit level, so that he suffereth in great measure. But he doth not regard it, for imperturbably he goeth his way, and also doth his duty until he hath fulfilled his mission, which lasteth throughout 7 times 70,000 years. As wisdom he has gone forth from his world of love, of peace, and near perfection, to instruct the imperfect ones, for which suffering and thanklessness are his wages. But he is also wisdom and patience, for the spirit of wisdom is poured out over him like water, and the glory doth not cease before him from eternity unto eternity. But he loveth the human beings and practiseth justice, for he is mighty over all secrets of justice. And unrighteousness will vanish like a shadow and exist no more, because he is resurrected from the forms of pure spirit to live as Son of Man among man, to instruct them in truth and wisdom, if they are willing. His justice is from eternity unto eternity, and his power from generation unto generation. In him resideth the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of those who give insight. And in him also resideth the spirit of teaching and of power, and also the power of spirit of all those who as human beings have died and reside in the invisible heavens. And he will judge the hidden things, and no one will be able to conduct a vain speech before him, for he knoweth the secrets. Wherefore he is chosen by the counsel of the wise ones as their highest. And in those days, a change for the righteous ones will occur. The light of days will reside over them, and joy and love and honor will turn towards the righteous ones. And on the day of misery, the disaster will gather over the unrighteous ones, but the righteous ones will triumph in the name of creation. And everything will happen. It will be proclaimed according to the laws and commandments of creation, that many of the unrighteous shall still atone and leave off the evil works of their hands. But the unrighteous, who do not change to truth, will have no honor before creation, but in its name all will be delivered, who will strive for the truth. But in those days, the wise of the wise ones will sit on his modest throne, and all the secrets of wisdom of his thoughts will stream forth from his mouth. For by the laws and commandments of creation they are given unto him. And in those days the mountains will jump like rams, and the hills hop like lambs which are satisfied with milk. For the earth will shake round about, and fire will break forth from it. But the human beings will call for peace, mighty like a great storm which rages over the lands. But the countenance of the righteous will glow in joy, because in those days the wise of wise ones with the head of days tarrieth among them, and giveth them comfort. And the earth will be joyful, for thereafter in the coming times only righteous ones will live and walk on the earth. But the time until then will still be long, yet it also fulfilleth itself, like the light of day fulfilleth itself, which removeth the darkness of night.
And after those days, at that place where I had seen all the visions about what is hidden, very much will come to pass. I, namely, was picked up by a whirlwind, and it led me away toward the west. There, my eyes saw the hidden things of the heavens, and everything which will occur on earth. I also saw a mountain of iron, a mountain of copper, one of silver, and one of gold, a mountain of mercury, one of lead, and also one of the oil of earth. And I asked the watcher who went with me while I said, "Which are the secrets of the things which I have seen hidden?" And he said to me,
All these things which you have seen serve the justice of creation and the justice of the wise ones with the head of days. Everything serveth for the purpose that creation shall be powerful and mighty on the earth.
And therefore the watcher of peace who went with me answered me while he said,
Wait a little. Then you will see, and it will be revealed unto you everything which is hidden, and also what creation hath planted. And those mountains which you have seen, the mountain of iron and the mountain of copper, and the mountain of silver and the one of gold, and the mountain of mercury, and the one of lead, and the one of oil of the earth also. All these will be before the wise one, with the head of days like honey before the fire, and also like the water which streameth down from above over those mountains. And all will become weak before his feet, and also empty, and will be plundered by the offending hand of man. Mankind will senselessly plunder all treasures of their earth, as the ores of copper and iron and lead, the ores of silver and gold, and of the mercury, which is like liquid silver. But they also plunder the oceans of oil which are in the earth, and also all precious stones, and also the minerals of life. And they will make war tools thereof, and divers good and evil, and also therewith they will annihilate the greatest parts of all life. By human hands they will manufacture death suns from the ores and from the minerals of life. And the oil of the earth they change into life power for metallic monsters, which move on land and on water and in the air. And from this dangerous life power, new air is generated which concealeth many deaths, and killeth the life of human beings, of animals, and of plants. But in those days, it will be that one cannot save oneself, neither with gold nor with silver, neither with lead, iron, or copper, and also not with precious stones or with minerals of life, as also not with the oil of the earth. One will not be able to save oneself or to flee. And forthwith no iron will be available any more for war nor for the hull of a tank. But also copper and silver and gold will not be available anymore. And also not precious stones and the minerals of life, but equally not the oil of the earth, mercury, and much of other treasures of the earth. Ore will not be useful, and tin will not be useful and not be mined, and lead will not be desired. All these things will disappear from, and be destroyed on the surface of the earth. When the wise one with the head of days appeareth with the same countenance in the new age, which he hath worn often heretofore, in fulfillment of his creative duty. But he will be often with the same countenance, every time he honorably fulfilleth his duty in the name of creation, and who will enter into the remembrance of mankind of earth forever.
And at another place my eyes saw a deep valley, the mouth of which was towards the west. And the valley, like a horseshoe, and on the top of the mountain towards the east, was the dwelling place and the throne of the wise one with the head of days. And there, never tiring, he cultivated the land and everything necessary, and there he lived and worked. He taught all the righteous and hoping and seeking ones. And I saw all who live on the continent and in the ocean and on the islands and in all the winds around the earth, who bring him homage gifts and homage presents to honor him in respect, yet without worship and without adoration. Quite many will come to him, but that deep valley will not be filled by them, because many do not understand the truth and again flee from it when they have found it. But many are also misled in manifold manner, who come to him to the mountain in the valley, to harm him or to cause injury, yet they shall not succeed therein. But he loveth them in strictness. Hence he imparteth counsel and thanks to them. But while they must withdraw from the valley and the place, so that they shall make themselves to righteous ones, as this is given through the laws and commandments of creation. And he knoweth quite well about the crimes which they commit with their hands, those the unrighteous ones. And he knoweth about everything they work, and what they devour in criminal manner, the unrighteous ones, so that they perish before the countenance of the glory of creation, so that as unrighteous ones they are chased from the surface of the earth, because they do not cease to live against the laws and commandments of creation. Truly, I have seen the punishments they have specifically generated for themselves, and how they went to prepare all the tools of evil. And I asked the watcher who went with me, "Those tools, for whom do they prepare them?" And he said to me,
They prepare these for themselves and for the kings and mighty ones and tyrants of the earth, so that they will annihilate themselves therewith. And they also determine the downfall and all delusion of going astray for themselves. And thus, this event will happen, and thereafter, the wise one with the head of days will let the house of the righteousness assembly appear, so that from now on the teaching and the spreading of the truth on earth in the name of creation shall not be hindered any more. And he will write down the word of truth, formed in symbols of language, so that henceforth the truth shall be imperishable in the knowledge of the human beings, and that the truth of creation shall not be falsified into lying and betrayal. And the mountains in the valley will be round about before his countenance like the earth, and the hills will be like a spring of water, and the righteous ones will find rest there from the suppression of the unrighteous, if they truthfully live according to creation.
And I gazed up and saw on a high metallic pole the sign flutter in the wind, which spoke of the origin of man of earth through the sons and daughters of the heavens. And I also saw that the sign fluttered round about the earth, and testified of the truth which had come, and of the wise one with the head of days. And again I gazed up and turned to another area of earth, and saw there a deep valley with burning fire. And the people of earth brought the mighty ones, and the kings, and tyrants, and the unrighteous ones, and laid them into the deep valley. And there my eyes saw how they made tools for them, which were chains of immeasurable weight. And I asked the watcher of peace, who was with me, while I said, These tools which are chains, for whom are they prepared? And he said to me,
These are being prepared for the bands of Azazel, to capture and to chain them and to place them into the deepest darkness of the self-damned and to cover them with rough stones up to their chin bones, if by the end of the days they have not fulfilled their self-appointed duty. Therefore, it will be that they will go to their self-chosen damnation if, against all their assertions, they again trespass against their duty and do not fulfill their task. But the time will be short for them until then, so that they can only fulfill their duty with effort. But their time runneth out at the hour, when the time of the water-bearer endeth, and the next sign beginneth, which will be degenerated in false fervor and in obsessed blind raging, if the duty bound of Azazel and Semjasa fail. And they themselves have determined their damnation, should they not fulfill their duty by the end of the time of the water-bearer. And often the bands of Azazel will work in commonality on the earth, and this will also be so in the new age, which beginneth when the time and the sign of the water-bearer dawneth. But therefore, this will be the time for Azazel's bands, and also for the bands of Semjasa, that their forms of spirit are born again into human bodies to fulfill their great task of atonement. But woe unto the fallible of these bands at that time, because for all their mistakes, they have to endure hard punishment and hard rebuke. All kinds of evil will also be theirs, measured according to how they fulfill their duty. This will be the time of their greatest proof, and this will also be the time of truth for them. But woe to those among them who betray the truth or their duty and task, for at that time their self-determined inheritance beginneth to become active. Therefore, they place upon themselves punishment for shunning of duty and task betrayal, so that they will have to atone sevenfold in punishment for every debt, and also threefold for every repeated failure. But the bands of Azazel and of Semjasa have placed upon themselves as inheritance that in the case of non-fulfillment of their duty and task, by the end of the time of the water-bearer, their spirit forms will be eternally placed into damnation. Therefore, will be among them weeping and gnashing of teeth, if they commit a break of their duty, because they have determined for their spirit forms to be banned into the lowest worlds without progress unto the end of all days, without a possibility of return existing or of lifting, and also that the consciousness shall be active in full force. Therefore, the fallible and guilty of the bands of Azazel and Semjasa create for themselves the lowest hell if they fail in and break their duty and task. But the flaming watchers, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Phanuel will grab the traitors on that great day and cast them into the fiery oven of their self-created hell, from which they will never be able to free themselves in eternity and evil torment to then, at the end of all days, painfully burn in the backward crash to a new beginning of creation. Therefore, the fallible and guilty of the bands of Azazel and Semjasa will avenge themselves for their unrighteousness and for their failure and for their breaking of duty. So they will punish themselves through their inheritance determination for their falling away from their task and duty. Therefore, that they became subject to unrighteousness and all evil and misled those who were born on the earth and lived there. And in those days, their self-determined judgment over their spirit forms will begin, so that they exclude themselves from the bond of creation and are alone in their long and tormenting destruction. And self-appointed punishment will be for those who become guilty or fallible repeatedly of betrayal among the bands of Azazel and of Semjasa. But considered a break of duty is everything which is of unclean speech, secret or open false speaking against the neighbor, to show non-love toward the neighbor, to harm the neighbor, refuse instruction, to be uncontrolled toward self and toward everything which transgresses against the laws and commandments of creation.
So the flaming watcher spoke unto me, and I was frightened, because I saw that the punishment of the inheritance determination of the bands of Azazel and Semjasa were quite terrible. So I saw the horror and terror, and also the bands of Azazel and Semjasa, who were the kings and mighty ones, who were laid into the deep valley and beaten into chains. But they were not kings and mighty and reigning over nations and generations of men, because only their appearance was royal and mighty, because they felt themselves as kings and mighty ones, while in their speculating and striving and thinking and acting they were lower than mankind of earth, to whom they should be ideal models. Therefore, in coming times, such a terror and such horror will be for the bands of Azazel and of Semjasa, if again they shirk their duty, while they, however, should be the highest leadership of all upper levels. And I, Henok, wish for them that they remain loyal to their duty and also fulfill it, that they may be spared their self-selected inheritance punishment of terribleness due to betrayal. But of them are many in total number, as I have seen, and who belong to the bands of Azazel and of Semjasa. Therefore, in total are 144,207. Semjasa and Azazel and their bands were 200 in number, when they trespassed against the laws and commandments, and also brought all evil to the earth and among mankind. But also 7 are added to them in the same betrayal, of the ranks of the highest leaders of the Ishwish, and so they were all among themselves of the same kin. Altogether, therefore, 207. Among themselves they were brother and sister and father and mother, but also niece and uncle and sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and therefore connected in all lines of kinship. But they were the leaders, no matter if they were man or woman, and thus at the beginning of the time of injustice they were the ringleaders. But with them went great masses of their people, to whom they were the overseers and leaders and superiors, and of them were in total 144,000. But all among them have chosen themselves for duty, that through just leadership and instruction of mankind of earth they atone for their own guilt and all evil and the evil offense which they created themselves, due to their degeneration and breaking of the law. Therefore, they are chosen ones of their own duty, resulting from self-committed offense and evil, which they have made themselves duty-bound to remove, while they also have determined for themselves the most evil and eternal punishment, if they should again be rebellious and failing. But their great activity beginneth only in the distant coming time, while during the time in between until then, everything will be prepared. And the total number which has to be found in the distant time, for their own fulfillment of duty altogether, therefore, have to be 144,207. And they have to become duty-fulfilling under a leadership, as I have seen in the green valley of the north, which is like a horseshoe, and also looketh like paradise, at which place the wise one liveth with the head of days. But around him shall circle the spirit forms of the ancient ones in new human bodies, and who at their ancient times were the guilty, whose names were Arapan, one of the male leaders of the Ishwish, Astrala, one of the female leaders of the Ishwish, Basjal, one of the male leaders of the Ishwish, Zikladon, one of the male leaders of the Ishwish, Zikladja, one of the female leaders of the Ishwish, Norfana, one of the female leaders of the Ishwish, Nicodemon, one of the male leaders of the Ishwish. And it happened, after I had seen this, that I saw a judgment in a vision, which will enter upon mankind of earth, as it hath occurred often already since times of old. Great waters will come over the earth, and all water containers which are high in the clouds, in addition to the springs which are on earth, and also those which are inside the earth, will be opened. And all waters will combine with the waters which are up in the clouds. But the waters which are up in the clouds are the male, and the waters which are down on earth are the female aspect. And all these waters will unite to a great flood, and much of life will be annihilated which liveth on the earth. Therefore a crashing of the waters will occur through the power of nature and of the stars, so sinking in great measure will occur on the earth. But therefrom mankind may recognize the power of force of the elements in stars, and that these are mightier than all of the will of man living in unrighteousness. Therefrom mankind may recognize their injustice, which they have committed on earth and will also commit in the future, so that they change and free themselves from their evils. And forthwith I saw the head of days thereafter, and heard his speech by which he spoke.
The flood of the waters is not a judgment, because it is only an occurrence of nature in its course. Man, therefore, may not arise at a sign of the Ishwish, or at a sign of creation, or at a sign of the wise ones, or of the flaming watchers. Creation doeth not destroy the lives which live on earth in punishment. Also the Ishwish doth not do so, neither the prophet, nor the wise ones, and not the flaming watchers of higher worlds. Never ever existeth or riseth up any anger of destruction in creation, or in human beings of wisdom, or in forms of spirit. Man alone createth the anger of destruction through his wrong speculating and striving, as it happened through the bands of Asasel and Simjasa. From creation, no evil ever turneth towards man and towards life, and in its name such will never occur. Therefore, all evil originateth from man in his unrighteousness, as also every punishment, whether simply or due to succession by inheritance, as this is given through their own power to the bands of Asasel and of Simjasa. Verily, between them and justice standeth the pledge of loyalty unto all eternity, as long as heaven is above the earth. And man may learn from the happening of the bands of Asasel and Simjasa, and they may also learn from their duty for the distant coming time, during which they fulfill this, and not lapse into their own judgment due to their own anger. And all of mankind of earth shall take notice, the poor as well as the rich. Also take notice, you human beings, also you mighty kings, you who will live on the earth. Notice, all of you, for in the coming time it is imminent that you will see the head of days at different times, surrounded by the entire company of Asasel and of Simjasa, to whom he is leader and wise teacher and admonisher and proclaimer of their duties and tasks, so that they do not break their word, but fulfill it unto eternity. And in another picture, it happened that I saw a band of chariots in which human beings traveled, but the chariots traveled on the wind and were carried by it. And one could hear the sounds of their chariots, loud and like continuous thunder, from sunrise and from sunset until noontime. And a wild tumult occurred in the air, and battles between the chariots, which were carried by the wind like the birds. But therefore the earth trembled from the uproar, and from great war cries, and one could hear the screams and the uproar from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. And also red-hot death suns ignited on the earth, created by the wicked hands of mankind, and truly thereby the earth was moved from its position and forced into a new path around the sun.
Thus Henok taught mankind of earth, speaks the Ishwish,
and also every one of his speeches was written down, so that they shall be preserved unto eternity. And the Ishwish instructeth the human beings of earth that what has been said is not the full extent of all speeches and visions of Henok, so that at other places in the word of truth more will be said about it. Now shall follow the word of the prophet of the new age, who revealeth his wisdom, so that the human beings of the earth shall be instructed in the knowledge of wisdom at the new age, taught by their prophet, and also taught in their language, and according to their understanding. And the instruction of wisdom shall take place in proverbs and in the name of creation, so that it shall be obeyed eternally. So then shall be handed over the word to the prophet, who speaketh in instruction to the human beings of earth.